Alright, so you're welcome to this other video, and in this video we want to continue with our data types, and today I want to show you how to convert between data types. Okay, so I come to learn Python data type conversions. So let me just put it here in case we are going to do data type conversions and concatenations. Alright, so the conversions, it's important. You might be wondering why you need to learn this, but you see, you'll be receiving data from user inputs. You'll be receiving data from different sources, okay, and you'll be creating your own data or generating your own data. It's important for you to put it in a certain data form, okay, data format, so that you'll be able to easily manipulate it. If your data is mixed up, for instance, you have integers and floats, or you have strings and floats together, it's going to be a little tedious. So let's try something. I'm going to create a variable called a, and I'm going to call a good evening. All right, I'm going to call a variable b 0.223 and a variable c 23. Okay, so now these are three data types. The first one, this one being a string. Okay, this one, it's a string. We're assigning a string to this variable called a. Now it's a string because it's in quotes, okay, and we have b as a float. All right, decimals is a float, okay, and c as an integer. There are a lot of others we could use, but for now I want us to consider this. Now you're doing your calculations, okay, and for instance you want to print the sum of, let's say, b and c. Okay, so you say print b plus c. Let's see what it gives us. Let's give you an answer. Okay, b plus c 23.233 223. That's the sum. Okay, so it's able to combine these two. Now let's try printing. Let's say we'll print a and c. Okay, what will be the value between a and c if we try to sum them? You say, oh, we have a type error here. Okay, you're saying that it can only concatenate string, not int to string. Okay, so it can concatenate string to string, not int to string. Oh, what does this mean? It's finding it difficult to put these two together, okay, because a represents good evening, which is a string, and c represents an integer. Basically what it's trying to tell you is that good evening has no numerical value, so it can't add 23 to good evening because it won't make sense. It won't make sense to add 23 as a value to good evening as string, as letters. You can't calculate that. So it's telling you that there's a type error here. Work on it at line 15. Remember, it's important to know how to debug. So line 15 here, just line 15. So you come to line 15, then you realize that there's an error with line 15. Then you work your way up. Okay, all right. So I'm just going to put this red marker here to remind you that there's an error there. Now we need to change this a to a value, okay, a numerical value, or we need to change this c to a string value, which is 23, which is easier to do. I believe you are thinking right now, c to an integer to a string is easier to do. Yes, that's very true. You could have said, let's create another variable here, d, which is 23. Now this is a string. Okay, this is a string, even though it's having a numerical numbers inside the quotations. It's actually a string because the quotations make it a string. Okay, so now we could say print c a plus d. Okay, let's see what that gives us. A plus d. Okay, it says good evening 23. It's able to sum a and d because they are both the same type. This is a string and this is a string. They are both in quotes. Okay, so they are strings. Do you see the sense here? So now if you want to replace, if you want to do what you were doing, a plus c, but instead of printing a plus c, which will give you a type error, and you want to convert a and c into a string, what you need to do is you need to use the str command or function. Okay, the str function will convert whatever is inside this bracket into a string. Str means string, it stands for string. So if you convert whatever is inside this brackets, okay, into a string, then it will now sum the string, it will now add the string to a. I hope that makes sense to you. Yes, if you don't understand anything, you can leave your questions at the comment section. I will get back to you. All right, so now let's put this together. Let's run it and see. Good, it works. Good evening 23. This string is able to convert. This string is able to convert. I mean, this function's str is able to convert the number 23 into a string, and then it's able to add it to another type of string. Okay. So you are asking, how come B and C worked? We said B plus C, and it worked, right? It gave us a decimal answer. Yes. The reason why B and C worked is because B has a numerical value and C has a numerical value, even though they are different data types. Okay. This is a float. It's a decimal. Okay, so it's a float. This is an integer, but they are both numerical. You can sum decimals and integers. You can do that. It makes sense. But you can't sum good evening and 23. It doesn't make logic. It doesn't make sense. Okay. All right. So I want to show you something else. Now, you see this 23. This 23 is having numbers inside it, even though it's a string. We can convert this 23 into an integer or a float, into a numerical value, because it's having numbers inside it. I think that makes sense, right? So we can say B plus, and this time we are going to use int D. Okay, B plus integer D means that convert this B into an integer and add it to B, which is a float. Right, that gives us this answer. I think that makes sense, right? We could also say B plus float D. Now it's going to convert this D, which is 23, into a float. A float means decimal. Okay, so it's going to convert it into a float, and it's still going to give us the same answer. I think that makes sense. Alright, so I'm just going to try something else. Now I'm saying convert this B into an integer. This B is already a float. Okay, so what you can do is you can always convert from data types using those commands, those functions. Okay, so I'm going to say int B plus int D. Let's see what it gives us. It gives us 23. What does it mean? It means it converted this B, which is an integer, which is a float. It removes the decimal part of it. Okay, it threw it away. It basically cuts it off, and then it summed it to this other integer and gave us an integer result. Okay, that makes sense. So what are we working with? It means you need to know these functions. Okay, the first one is str, the second one is int, third one is float. There are a lot more. Okay, there are a lot more. You can use as many as possible. We will come to lists very soon. Probably in our next video we'll come to lists very soon. There are a lot more. Okay, so what I want you to understand is that you can always convert variables into other, you can always convert data types into other data types. Okay, and then you can join them together. Concatenation means joining together. All right, to concatenate them means you are putting them together, you're joining them together. Remember this value. So assuming we are pointing, I'm just going to remove this one. Assuming we are pointing A plus D, A plus D is going to join them together, right? Now you are wondering why there's no space here. Space, you can put a space here. Okay, space is a character. If you put it there, you see that it actually brings that space in there. All right, it's not as difficult as it seems. You just have to take your time, and you get the logic. The moment you understand how the interpreter thinks, your coding should be less difficult. You should have it easy to code. All right, these are some of the simple things you are supposed to know in order to do the programming. Now you may be wondering where is the programming and everything, but don't worry, we're just getting our basics straight. By the time our basics are straight and we start to solve problems, you see that it actually carries a lot of sense. I hope you get it. All right, so data type conversions, that's the changing. Okay, using these functions. Okay, and concatenations. So concatenation is joining these ones together. All right, joining them together. Now we've been using plus. We could also use times, but you can use divided by for strings. Remember, okay, it's better to show you than to explain. So I'm going to multiply A by 5. All right, and see what we get. Says good evening. I want to put space here because it's really not helping. All right. Good evening. That's how many good evenings. 1, good evening. 2, good evening. 3, good evening. Okay. And 4, good evening. Oh, and 5, good evening. So what does it mean? It means it has repeated the string by 5. Okay. It has repeated the string 5 times. Now you should take note. These are some of the things you have to know. That's simple stuff. you multiply a number by a string, it's going to repeat the string the number of times the number is you are multiplying it by. Okay, assuming you are multiplying a number by a number, I think with that you should get a number, right? 115. We are multiplying c, which is 23, by 5. You will get 115, a number. Alright, so let's multiply d by 5 and see, because you'll be thinking, oh, d is a number. D is not really a number, it's a string. It repeats 23 5 times. I hope you get the logic here. Yes, so it's important. If you want to concatenate, you use the plus, okay? You can use the plus and join them together. Now you're asking, can you concatenate d and 5? We already tried that. We tried to concatenate a string and a number, and it told us that it's a type error. It can't do that. It won't make sense, right? Yes. So that's all I have to show you about this particular video. Stay tuned for the next video, because it's all going to make sense very soon. All right.